Hey everyone! Today we're going to talk about one of the most chaotic and dramatic periods in Roman history, the crisis of the 3rd century. This era, which lasted from 235 to 284 CE, saw the mighty Roman Empire fall into complete disarray. It wasn't just one problem that brought Rome to its knees, it was a perfect storm of political chaos, economic collapse, and military disasters. It all started when Emperor Alexander Severus was assassinated by his own troops in 235 CE. From that point on, the empire spiraled out of control. The assassination created a leadership vacuum, and without a clear system for choosing new emperors, Rome turned into a revolving door for rulers. Over the next 50 years, more than 20 emperors came and went, most of them dying violently. To put that in perspective, only 26 emperors ruled during the first 250 years of the Roman Empire, starting with Augustus. So the rapid turnover during this crisis shows just how unstable things had become. The cracks in the empire didn't just appear overnight. Problems had been building for years. Septimius Severus, the founder of the Severan dynasty, had started a trend of keeping the military happy by giving them pay raises and other perks. While this kept the soldiers loyal, it also drained the empire's finances. To cover the costs, he debased the currency, reducing the amount of precious metal in coins. At first, this didn't cause major issues, but later emperors kept doing it, leading to massive inflation and economic collapse. The situation got even worse after Alexander Severus came to power. He relied heavily on advice from his mother, Julia Mamaea, which made him look weak and ineffective. The soldiers lost respect for him, especially after he chose to pay off invading German tribes instead of fighting them. This decision was seen as cowardly, and both Alexander and his mother were assassinated by their own troops. With their deaths, Rome entered a period ruled by what historians call the barracks emperors. These were military leaders who seized power with the support of their troops. Unlike earlier emperors, who usually gained the throne through succession, these new rulers were chosen based on their popularity with the army. But as soon as they failed to deliver victories or wealth, they were quickly overthrown, often through assassination. This cycle of instability made it almost impossible for the empire to deal with external threats and internal problems. One of the first barracks emperors was Maximinus Thrax. He took power after Alexander Severus and immediately plunged the empire into constant warfare. While trying to fight off enemies, he also faced famine, plague, and civil unrest. His own troops eventually had enough and killed him. After that, things didn't get any better. The next several emperors, Gordian I and II, Balbinus, and Pupienus, either died in battle or were murdered by their own guards. The pattern continued with Philip the Arab, who made his son co-emperor but was killed in battle. Decius, who replaced him, also made his son co-emperor, hoping it would bring stability, but both died in battle against the Goths. The plague then took out Decius's younger son, Hostilian. Emperors Gallus and Volusianus faced the same fate, murdered by their own troops. Valerian came next and tried to bring order by making his son Gallienus co-emperor. But his reign ended in disaster when he was captured by the Persians and reportedly died in captivity. Gallienus did his best to improve the military, but even he was assassinated. The chaos continued with Claudius Gothicus, who died of plague after briefly stabilizing things, and his brother Quintillus, who was killed shortly after taking power. Finally, Emperor Aurelian managed to turn things around. He reunited the empire by defeating breakaway regions like the Gallic and Palmyrene empires. He also strengthened Rome's borders and dealt with external threats. But despite his successes, even Aurelian was assassinated by his commanders. Over the next 9 years, a string of emperors, including Tacitus, Florianus, Probus, Carus, Numerian, and Carinus, rose and fell, each following the same pattern of being elevated by the military and then killed when they couldn't deliver results. All the while, Rome's economy continued to crumble, and the empire's vast size made it harder and harder to manage. By 260 CE, regional leaders decided they'd had enough. Postumus, a governor in Germania, declared himself ruler of the Gallic Empire, which included Germania, Gaul, Hispania, and Britannia. Around 270 CE, Queen Zenobia of Palmyra formed her own empire in the east, stretching from Syria to Egypt. These breakaway empires further weakened Rome, and showed just how fragmented it had become. And after years of chaos and infighting, the Roman Empire had fractured, and two major breakaway regions had emerged: the Gallic Empire under Postumus in the west, and the Palmyrene Empire under Zenobia in the east. Now it might sound like these leaders were outright rebels, but the truth is a little more complicated. Neither Postumus nor Zenobia saw themselves as enemies of Rome. In fact, they both tried to position their actions as measures to protect the empire during a time of instability. Postumus even created his own government and senate, but still portrayed his leadership as a service to Rome, while Zenobia issued coins with Emperor Aurelian's image to maintain ties with the central authority. Both of them may have sought greater autonomy, but their moves were calculated, not reckless attempts to destroy the empire. While Rome's emperors were busy fending off invasions and internal power struggles, these breakaway leaders maintained order in their regions. But everything changed when Aurelian came to power. Unlike the emperors before him, Aurelian focused on uniting the fractured empire. He was a skilled commander and, after securing Rome's borders, turned his attention to the east. Aurelian was ruthless on the battlefield. He marched through Zenobia's territory, using scorched earth tactics to force submission. But when he reached Tyana, he chose mercy instead of destruction. Stories say he was inspired by a dream of the philosopher Apollonius, who advised leniency. This act of mercy convinced many cities to surrender without resistance, and it set the stage for his ultimate confrontation with Zenobia. Zenobia's forces, led by her trusted general Zabdas, first clashed with Aurelian at the Battle of Imi. Aurelian tricked their cavalry into chasing a fake retreat, only to ambush them in a devastating counterattack. Zenobia regrouped but faced another defeat at the Battle of Emesa. After this second blow, Zabdas disappears from history, likely killed in the battle, and Zenobia was captured. Now, the image of Zenobia being paraded through Rome in golden chains is a dramatic story, but it's probably more myth than fact. Aurelian wouldn't have wanted to embarrass himself by emphasizing how much effort it took to subdue her rebellion. Instead, he likely treated her capture as a symbol of restored order. After securing the east, Aurelian turned his attention westward to deal with the Gallic Empire. Postumus had already been killed by his own men years earlier, and by the time Aurelian arrived, Tetricus of Y was in charge. Tetricus didn't seem eager for a fight, and may have even secretly negotiated his surrender. Regardless, their forces clashed at the Battle of Chalon, where Aurelian's army crushed Tetricus's troops. Some say Tetricus betrayed his men to save himself and his son, but it's more likely Aurelian saw value in sparing him. Having learned from his campaign against Zenobia, Aurelian probably realized that mercy could be a powerful tool for maintaining order. Sparing Tetricus and his son not only avoided unnecessary losses, but also showed other would-be rebels that surrender didn't always mean death. Unfortunately, Aurelian's reign was cut short when he was assassinated by his own commanders, who wrongly believed he planned to execute them. But his efforts laid the groundwork for the empire's recovery. The real turning point came with Diocletian. Building on Aurelian's foundation, Diocletian didn't just patch up the empire, he transformed it. He introduced reforms that stabilized the currency, controlled inflation, and reshaped the military to reduce reliance on massive standing armies that could turn against the emperor. Instead, he developed mobile forces that could reinforce border defenses without becoming loyal to regional commanders. Diocletian also introduced the Tetrarchy, splitting the empire into 4 regions governed by co-emperors. This structure made the vast empire more manageable and reduced the chaos of succession crises. His most dramatic move was dividing the empire into eastern and western halves, a decision that would shape the future of Rome for centuries. Thanks to the groundwork laid by Aurelian and Diocletian, the Western Roman Empire survived for nearly 200 more years, while the eastern half, later known as the Byzantine Empire, endured until 1453. Their efforts didn't just save Rome, they reshaped it, leaving a legacy that still echoes through history today.